the sun, take a long way around. Back.
Funny how, for all you've done to your bodies, it's still real to me, damn it.
I mean, that's good.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of It's Still Real to Me. The three normal guys is here tonight with
three good-looking men.
That's a matter of opinion. Got Mr. Red Cup over here, Jeremy Johnson. Jeremy, how's your week?
Hey, it's
Are you watching CNN?
uh-oh.
This is breaking. Got to show it. Woo!
Yeah, that'll fade real quick when you get put out in the second round.
Take that SEC title away from us.
That's true. It's true. Overrated Alabama doing what overrated Alabama done. Yeah.
Hey, you cracked me up. You said that the other night. So
No, they are overrated. They've been overrated all year.
But Howie, I had to interrupt your open, but I had to throw that up. So go ahead.
I still say roll tide.
Go ahead. It's all good, man. Anyway, Jeremy, how's your week been so far?
It's good. Little less time, I guess, on the road, if you will. A little bit less. Gotta hit the road again this next week. But yeah, so it's going good. It's going good. Went on a hat buying spree. Y'all like my old school Miami Dolphin hat right there?
I do.
If they go back to these, they might win a Super Bowl, but they're not going to. So
classic trucker.
And the man that makes it all possible, the man that supports both like Navy and Tennessee both. Randall Cunningham, how's your week been so far?
I can just say I feel like I'm standing out in a beautiful rain, and it's falling all over me. And it's like somebody's making it rain. You know, it's almost like we got a rainmaker.
Let's just go ahead and go straight to the news then. Someone made a debut last night at AEW. A week before expected. Everybody kind of expected to be next week, but he came in last night, Mr. Okada. I know, Randy, you've been wanting to talk about it ever since you heard about it. Go ahead.
Look, and we'll probably talk about these two guys here late, but no better pairing than they could make than the two hottest heels, the EVPs, and Okada to reverse the feud of the two EVPs, the Jacksons, the Young Bucks, and Kenny Omega versus Okada in Japan. I think you see Kenny Omega come back with a huge, over-the-top babyface return. And this time in America, Okada's the heel, Kenny Omega's the face. Young Bucks are with Okada. I wouldn't be shocked to see maybe FTR with Omega.
Jeremy, your thoughts?
Okay, well, limited, of course. Okada, he's known as one of the best wrestlers in the world, but
the best wrestler.
Yeah, okay, but he's not really familiar to the American audience. I think he's slowly getting there. So I'm excited to see how Tony Khan finds a way to make him irrelevant like he has all the other great wrestlers that have come into the company.
I was prepared for your statement of that. I was going to answer you back with what a star that AEW has made in, you know who I'm talking about? Swerve Strickland.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you.
He, the other night, looked like $1 million against some.
Yes.
against the tag team. It was him and Samoa Joe versus the Kingdom.
Yeah.
He looked like $1 million. So I
So
agree with you. Jay White has been Jay White is nowhere to be seen, and all of a sudden, Kurt Strickland is really taking the hold of AEW as one of the leading figures in AEW.
So yes, and I like the concept of, even though Swerve can be a heel, that was a babyface promo the other night.
It was.
I really did. I like Swerve. I like his promo. I like his in-ring work. The only thing that upsets me, and we of course we haven't. We'll probably get into it. Howie knows this, but I didn't like the fact that they put him in a three-way with Samoa Joe. I wanted to see Swerve and Samoa Joe, but hopefully we get that later.
I think so. I think so.
Your opinion on that is just like probably 95% of America that watches AEW. They wanted it to be a one-on-one match with Samoa Joe against Swerve Strickland. So, other news since we've been on here, AEW had another incoming person. Will Ospreay made his appearance a week ago last night in Huntsville. Didn't wrestle, but then he did wrestle. Him and Takeshita stole the show at Revolution Sunday night.
Yeah.
Jeremy, your thoughts on that?
Well, I didn't get to watch, and I've got comments about accessing that pay-per-view, but I'll save them for a little later. But Takeshita, I do like Takeshita. I have since the beginning. He proved he could keep up with probably one of the best wrestlers in the world, in Will Ospreay. Again, these are, to outside the AEW universe, if you will, they're not well known, but they will be. I believe those guys tore it down from what I read, at least, that they tore it down. Thought it was odd that Don Callis said, I can't find anybody for Takeshita to wrestle, so I'm just going to take somebody out of my own group here. So I didn't like that. I don't like that idea. But the match itself.
There's got to be a storyline because the next match is going to be Will Hobbs. So what's he doing with him?
Yeah, right.
So I'm not sure. I agree with you. That's confusing. They've got to be a storyline, or this is just like the most confusing thing in the world to me.
I hope it ends up being a good story. Maybe it's going somewhere. I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't. It would be about right for some of the booking there in AEW. Good matches, bad booking sometimes. Good matches, bad booking.
We'll send a hey out to Jessica. Thanks for watching. I didn't. I've known you for several years, but I never thought you'd be a wrestling fan. But thanks for watching.
Hey, she may be a fan of ours. Howie.
Let's tell Matthew we said hello. Randy, your thoughts on Ospreay coming in?
What is WWE doing? Everybody that they have bid on together has went, except for Tom Matunga, has went to AEW. We talked about 3 months ago about how we were confused by AEW, but I see people in the absence of CM Punk, Kenny Omega, and really Chris Jericho at the top of the card. I see people kind of positioning themselves. Hangman kind of lower upper tier, not that top level, but then you see Ospreay, Okada. You also see them taking the title off of Pockets, as Jim Cornette calls him. You also see Darby now free to go into it. Darby's had the ultimate push from the Sting. Yeah. Now you've got a Darby coming off of this monster run with Sting that's now all of a sudden got nothing to do and he's free.
Yeah.
So I do think they're trying to carve a niche of 8, 9, 10 guys at the top of that card. And I think it'd be so much better off if they did, because
Yeah.
it's so all over the place that just narrowing the focus down. You can have 100 guys on your roster. You can use 25 of them down in Ring of Honor, and you can use 25 of them kind of as enhancement talent, and then you can have your, oh, by the way, 10 of the Jay Briscoes and people you keep there that gets hot. You can bring Jay Briscoe up to feud with Samoa Joe. You can move, but he's not going to be consistently at the top of that card. Okada and Ospreay, Jay White not being misused. That's pretty elite talent. Also, the return quietly of Kyle O'Reilly, who I've always thought had the talent to be. He talks good. He talks a good one. He's always had that rub of being in the Undisputed. I think Bobby Fish has held Kyle O'Reilly back a little bit. They were so labeled together as Red Dragon, that Kyle O'Reilly grew his hair out, which makes him look like a pro wrestler finally, So all the criticism, rightly so, that AEW has got, Howie, I do see some guys finally getting a rub to the top of the card that needs to get the rub. Because let's face it, Samoa Joe is the best talent there. Okada's the best talent there. It's not the EVPs. It's not the guys that started.
No.
They struggled when Cody left to try to find a pecking order. But I hope now they're getting a pecking order. Cody was always the centerpiece of AEW. While he wasn't in the title mix, he was always first match on, feuding the guy coming in. I guarantee you, if Okada was coming in right now, his first feud would have been Cody Rhodes. Will Ospreay's first feud been Cody Rhodes.
Yeah.
So AEW to me has been a little lost. Kenny Omega being out, Chris Jericho taking a lesser role. I think it's good for AEW.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed it more the last couple of months. I was getting really frustrated with it. Jungle Boy being shipped off to New Japan. Get him out of the country. I think he's being punished. I think he's over there being punished for the fight between him and CM Punk. So, Luchasaurus isn't a star, but he's a good worker. You put him with Christian Cage. Let him be a part of that. Nick Wayne. Wow. That kid's something special. But just to answer your question, I think AEW has too much talent and they're trying to get down to where it really is.
Yeah. I think that's you're right. I've been a little frustrated with them, as y'all know. But I think what it amounts to is you do have a lot of time. You got these shows, you Rampage, Collision, Dynamite, but that's still a limited amount of time to get people on TV. And I think what he's tried to do is he tried to please everybody, and he's trying to spread it out. And in doing so, you can't build effective and good storylines and feuds and build those things when you're trying to please all these people. You're trying to get them on TV. And so everything is just happening. It's like quick booking, And I'm the best thing that has happened, and you already mentioned it. The best thing that has happened is Samoa Joe being the AEW World Champion, because he looks like the champion. He carries himself like the champion. And then we all know in the ring, there's probably not anybody any tougher, any more imposing than Samoa Joe. So I think that was the start. I think a lot of these other champions have been posers, if you will. Hangman, Kenny maybe, but I feel like they have a legit champion now. He is a legit champion, and that's a good start.
Tony Khan said that those first 4 champions, which I think went Jericho, Kenny, Hangman, it's somewhere in there in that order. When they started the company, that whole run was pre-booked. And that was part of getting all those guys to come. I really think Hank. I think he's done a better job too, Jeremy, getting a focus off a Collision and getting his focus off that. It is now Wednesday night. That is
Yeah.
their Raw. That is their main shows. You know, you have great wrestling on other shows, but if you miss Wednesday night, you miss the storyline. Just like this
Hmm.
week, all the storyline was revealed. And I'm sorry, WWE, SmackDown, you got Roman over there, but really, I don't know what the ratings are, but I don't watch SmackDown, but I will. You know, if I know The Rock's going to be on it, I'll flip it on. But no matter how much I hate the WWE, on Monday night I'm going to flip through Raw at some point. It's still the front end of the WWE to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they've
And
got it figured out.
Jeremy, you were correct. Jessica is a big fan of yours. She says that. So, there we go.
Oh,
Let me throw this
oh,
question out to you guys. I was thinking about it earlier today or yesterday. But do you think that WWE/TKO was a little bit worried about Osprey, Okada, and coming Wednesday night, Mercedes Moné? Do you think they was a little bit worried and they threw the bank at The Rock to get him to come in to offset some of these people?
I'm going to let Jeremy answer first. Didn't you ask him?
yeah.
Either
No.
one.
Okay.
No.
The WWE is so bought in to the bloodline that they can't see the trees past the forest. The only person they can bring in to enhance the bloodline is Tama Tonga. Also, I've heard they brought in they've signed. I don't know officially. I've read they've signed the two tag team wrestlers, part of the Samoan Dynasty from MLW. It is the best storyline in the last 5 years in wrestling, but it's the only storyline they got.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
even the McIntyre Seth Rollins thing is rolled into. Seth Rollins is still going to wrestle The Rock and Roman Reigns the night before the World Heavyweight Champion. Gunter is the second best storyline in there, and I don't think
Hmm.
after Gunter, I don't think there's a third best storyline.
Uh, hmm. So I don't think, to answer the question, I don't think they were worried at all. Because they are so far ahead of where AEW is. And I don't mean that as a slight toward AEW. They are so far ahead when it comes to ratings, when it comes to revenue, that they don't need to bring in those people to to stay ahead. I don't think they're worried in the least about that. Because I feel like that maybe they think that, well, it's just like with pro football is, giving a max deal to a wide receiver. Is it going to be worth that investment? Are you going to get that kind of return out of that wide receiver when you got a bad offensive line and your quarterback is okay? Are you going to get your money's worth? And I think they probably looked at it. It's like the money that we would have to pay out for those folks, we're not going to get that big of a return from those three. That's just my thoughts.
So I want to follow up to Jeremy's point a little bit. I think there's some truth in that, but I do think there's also another layer of this. I think TKO controls the purse strings,
You're
and y'all,
right.
as much as I don't want to say it, Vince McMahon is still 98% of the voting shares of the WWE common stock, which is what
Hmm.
goes into the boardroom and votes.
Hmm.
He's moved from destroying the WWE. So if I'm
Yeah.
TKO and I'm in a business partnership now with the WWE and I am the controlling strings, and Vince McMahon is proven to be this wild card that we got to get under control. I'm not sure I wouldn't pull back on the purse strings a little bit too. They
Yeah.
don't need them. At AEW, and Jim Cornette might say different. AEW at the top of the card has better wrestlers. Let me say it that way. Not better sports entertainers, better wrestlers. I don't know that Roman Reigns can walk over to AEW and wrestle with those guys. He's
No.
I don't think those guys could go to WWE and be the sports entertainment that Roman Reigns is. I mean, that line where Rock recognized him, I had chills on my arms.
It was good.
I hate the WWE, but that moment,
That was good.
it was a very good. It was one of the probably 10 best moments in WWE history.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the same as it was. To me, it's the same as it was back in the 80s when you had WWF and then you had NWA Crockett. The better wrestlers were in Crockett, were in the NWA. And I think you would agree with that. But the
reflect that too.
the entertainment and the all the other things existed in the WWF, and it's still the same. I think it's still the same right now. Yes, I agree with you. The better wrestlers. Now there's some good ones in WWE. Don't get me wrong, but overall, probably the better wrestlers, at least at the top, are in AEW. And the experience, the green, that he's been criticized for using all these green guys like Nick Wayne and all these others and stuff. But at the top, if you think about Danielson and you think about Samoa Joe, and then you think about Ospreay and now Okada, and even Adam Cole. I know he's injured. He's been injured a lot, but Adam Cole, even though he looks like a 17-year-old kid body wise, he was a very good wrestler. So yeah.
That third party line, I would say the Undisputed Kingdom is the third storyline going on right now within AEW, and it's probably right there. Christian Cage is probably maybe the fourth. Christian Cage might be the third one, then that one the fourth one. I just feel like AEW has built better layers, but the WWE is better at the top. Boy, I gave an honest answer, which I don't like to do about the WWE.
We got a couple more quick news stories, and we'll move on. Somebody said he wanted to get off kind of early tonight because he's an old man and's got to get in bed, get some sleep. So,
Howie, you know what he's going to do? He's just going to get up and walk off when he's done. He did that to us last week. Yeah, we saw that. Get that. That orange is burning my eyes.
So, quick couple more quick news stories. We had a couple of deaths this past week with Virgil or Vincent, depending on which way you know him. The bodyguard of the $1 Million Man, and also Ole Anderson passed away. Real quick, Randy, your thoughts on both of those?
Virgil was a piece of crap. Sorry, he's dead. That's one person I can't say rest in peace. And he's done some horrible things to people, but here's the beauty of it. I think towards the end, he tried to make some rights. And I mean, that man has done some horrible stuff to people. He tried to charge Brooke Hogan for an autograph. I mean, that shows you that shows how he is. But he really, if you saw the last few weeks, he even had one that was like, "Hey, man, I pretty much know I'm a horrible human being." He, for a brief moment, caught a storyline thanks to one of the best and unheralded wrestlers in Ted DiBiase that really held him to the front. I think the whole NWO thing was them just trying to grab anybody that had the WWE Raw rub on them and bring them in. He did have one magic moment as Virgil. Ole Anderson, he was the mean, gruff, or if you listen to some of the internet podcasts, now let me tell you what Ole Anderson done. He booked my two favorite territories of all time simultaneously booked Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling and Georgia Championship Wrestling. in the early 80s, late 70s, they were no two better territories than those two territories. Famously, Mid-Atlantic went to Dusty. Georgia sold off to the McMahons, and then the Crockett's came in and bought Georgia back from the McMahons. Then Dusty was running it, and then Ole became part of the Four Horsemen. I mean, the best faction in wrestling. Yeah, I mean, I don't think there'd be much argument from anybody that is still the symbol of excellence in faction.
Yeah.
Also, as an Anderson brother in the ring, a classic tag team with Ole and Gene. And then, look, Marty Lundy, kid from Rome, Georgia, got the rub off of Ole Anderson and became a legend just off the rub from Ole. And I'm talking about Arn Anderson. People can criticize Ole, and even some of the guys on the internet have really gave him a hard time. And I know Ole done a lot of bad things, and I know Ole was hard to deal with, and you can look at his shoot interviews and know that. Ole had a great mind for this business, and Ole simultaneously made Ric Flair and Tommy Rich the two hottest wrestlers in the world at that point, pre-Hulk Hogan. Tommy Rich, of course, career faded. Ric Flair went on to 16 times world champion. Think about that. He took two different guys and made them hot as fire.
Yeah, he did.
Jeremy?
Yeah, well, start with Ole. My first memory of Ole Anderson was in the Four Horsemen. As a part and a tag team with Arn, and so I think for me, I'll always remember that part of him, and he just looked like a legit tough guy, and he was just a tough guy in the ring. And I think that wasn't a gimmick for him. He was tough. He was tough physically. He was tough, when he was booking and operating. I think it's probably a good example of time passing someone by, because like Randall said, very successful booking, two territories early. And then later on, you bring him in to try to help WCW, and you got a lot of corporate garbage going on, and Ole not cut out for dealing with corporate garbage, just like Bill Watts was the same. Got corporate garbage, can't do what I think needs to be done, whatever. And so, he was times change. Ole didn't change. The only thing, he was responsible for Arn Anderson. I do think he was partially responsible for the Road Warriors.
Yeah, he put them together.
He put them together and called them the Road Warriors. So, I think all three of us are huge Road Warriors fans. So that's a big deal. I think his biggest thing that I'll always remember, and you correct me if I'm wrong, because I may be running this together. I think he was quoted when he was booking WCW that I think he told the Undertaker he'd never draw a dime, which that was Mark Calloway or Mean Mark Callis. Probably in hindsight, he wished he hadn't have said that, because we all know that is not the case, and Undertaker will go down as being one of the, if you had a Mount Rushmore, he may be on many of those, depending on the person. But so Ole left his mark. I always heard and listening to others talk, he was very frugal. He managed his money well, unlike a lot of those wrestlers that spent it as soon as they got it. He was very frugal. As far as Virgil, same thing for me with Virgil. My first memory of Virgil, really my only memory of Virgil, because was with Ted DiBiase, with the $1 Million Man, and I thought he was perfect for the role. I don't think, and to be honest, they got away with some things back then, with him being African American and Ted being, the rich white man. They got away with some things now that would probably stir up a ton of controversy if it were done today, and it probably will never be done, obviously. But I, had heard that Virgil's not a nice man. He's not a good man. You hope when people leave, doesn't matter how you started, there's always an opportunity to turn things around, even until the very end. So, the hope is that, that Virgil turned that thing around. But yeah, good memories of the $1 Million Man with Virgil, though. I do remember that.
And Cornette said of Ole, and we're going to talk about this when we talk about overrated, is it you made money, which really that's what wrestling is supposed to be about. Ole Anderson probably from a 10-year run in the mid 70s to the early 80s was probably made more money than any wrestler in the business by being double booking territories and at the same time booking himself as a world tag team champion. Ole cleaned up.
And he was a businessman. He
Yeah.
wasn't just a wrestler. He was a businessman. So that was one of the things for him that I think allowed him to leave and leave wrestling and probably, I don't know, maybe live comfortably and not have to worry about you know where his next check, unlike Virgil, who was, I think at times has found himself in financial situations. So, rest in peace. Seems like they all come in clusters,
One quick,
guy.
Tommy Rich talked about how Ole got him over in Georgia. So this is how smart, and to me this is brilliant. Brings Tommy Rich, lets Abdullah the Butcher beat him in about 30 seconds. Brings Tommy Rich back, puts Tommy Rich in the ring with Abdullah the Butcher. He goes 10 minutes with him, and then he beats him. He does this several weeks, then brings Tommy Rich to the Omni against Abdullah the Butcher, and Tommy Rich beats the Butcher, or it's one of those no finishes like the Bruiser Bros he finished. And from that point on, Tommy Rich is the hottest face in Georgia
Hmm.
by losing to Abdullah the
Yeah.
Butcher.
Well, like we've heard, you don't have to go over to get over. He got over even though he lost. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, one more quick newsworthy thing that I'll put out there, but we'll get into the top 10. We'll get more into this news because it's going to happen pretty much weekly to WrestleMania. The first two WWE inductees to the Hall of Fame, Paul Heyman and Bull Nakano, were both mentioned this week and last week. So, but once we get the full list, then we'll possibly do a show about that. So, let's get on to our top 10, or excuse me, top 5.
I
Top
think we
five.
got to mention it stink, and we need to do
Yeah.
a thing at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, our top 5 most overrated. Since we've gone pretty long on the news,
Oh, I'm good. You take your time.
no, I'm not good.
Harry's like,
So
I got to get in the bed.
yeah. So the 5 and 4, tell us who they are, then we'll go in depth on 3, 2, and 1. Okay. So
Yep.
number 5, Jeremy.
Okay, my number five. My number five is Lex Luger. We all know what he looked like, but looked like $1 million. But my number five is Lex Luger. I don't think he ever really got to the status that he could have. I think ego was part of that, as he has been forthright in his later years and now. My number four. Look, I loved him when I was a kid. And drawing money is the bottom line, and that he did. But I'm going to say at number four is the Hulkster, Hulk Hogan. And I know people will lose their mind, but the only thing I'm basing this on is he was extreme in WWF. I've seen Japanese footage. The guy could go. He was very limited in his skill set. He was great on the mic, but he was extremely selfish, booking wise, when you get into WCW and things of that nature, having that uh, creative control, not agreeing to do things that probably would have been better for the business. But when you look at him being able to go, and I loved him. I still do. It's not a slight, but I feel like he was overrated. Ric Flair, much better wrestler, much more intriguing personality. So that's hate me. If anybody listens to this, I'm sorry. It's just my opinion.
Well, here's the thing about it.
Here in a few minutes, so don't worry about it.
Here's the thing about it. With those two pictures popping up as quick as they did,
I know. That's what I said.
It's going to be mentioned again. So
Either that or Randall can read my mind.
One of them be the other one was on that list. Remember me saying I've got 7 spots. So, but our list is very common. But I'm going to start at number 5 with what I think is the worst WWEF. What I call it, champion of all time, Jinder Mahal.
Oh, come on, man!
He was. I never watched one match. He was put in place so that the Indian crowd would follow the WWE when they went through this big tour. Since he lost the WWE Championship, we see once a blue moon to do something stupid like go in and get the crap beat out of him by The Rock.
Yes.
His best thing about his title reign, I can't remember the name, but the 2 brothers that came out with him that won every match for him.
Veer and Shaky or something.
Yeah. He was uncreative in the ring. Every match looked the same. He was not spectacular on the mic. I find him. I watched less of the WWE. Matter of fact, I quit watching it because I couldn't stand to see that at the WWE.
That's your number 5. How about your number 4?
Well, keep that vein going.
Oh, man! Yes, I agree with this one completely.
Couldn't even walk to the dang ring. And you got to find something. Luger ended up getting bumped down because tell me one thing the Great Khali did.
The Punjabi prison match.
The Singh brothers is who you're thinking about.
The Singh brothers, you're right.
Yeah.
The Great Khali, something was wrong with his ankles. If you want, I mean, it's like a 13-year-old. If you watch him doing the gritty, but that's how he walked for real. Great Khali had no place in the wrestling business. Shouldn't have been in the wrestling business.
No.
And you know what? He's not Andre. He's not Paul Wright. He is a big guy. And he got in over the Giant Gonzalez because he was the next guy on the list too. So a crappy wrestler in this world.
All right, Jeremy, start with your number 3.
My number 3 he went by several names, but I'm just going to call him Psycho Sid. That is Sid Vicious. That is Lord Humongous. Hey, look, I ain't gonna lie. This guy was imposing. I feel like he had great potential, but the guy couldn't talk. If you've ever seen those promos where he jacked those promos up, he was not committed to wrestling. I think he liked to
play softball.
He liked to play. Yes. So I don't know, and the only reason I say this, I wouldn't had he not held the world title, I wouldn't put him on this list necessarily. But I have no idea how this guy held a world title, other than he was huge, he looked good, and that's about all I know. So overrated, had a horrific injury in the ring. I think we've all seen that. But yeah, Psycho Sid. I feel like with him, he could have done a lot more, just like Lex Luger. I think Luger looked the part. Psycho looked the part, but I just never got there. Never could get over the hump.
Well, like I said earlier, that picture popped up pretty quick. So
I know. Man, hey, look, I'm not gonna lie. I'm getting really concerned that my thought process and Randall's are too close together. I hope it's just with wrestling.
Hey, well, let me throw my third one up there and see how you feel.
Hold on a second. Before you move on, I've told y'all this before, but I'll go ahead and say it again. I saw Sid Vicious in a little gymnasium in Fife, Alabama one night.
Oh wow.
Hey,
Some type of indie show.
when your best character is putting yourself in a hockey mask and not speaking, you ain't got it.
That's right. That was the best play. That may have been his best character, period. If he'd have stuck with that, he would have been fine.
And if the only thing you got is walking to the ring through a sparkler shower, you ain't got it either. The day.
Oh, ah, oh
Or,
man.
listen, man, I'm not going to blame Goldberg.
No.
I'm going to blame WCW for putting an untrained wrestler in the ring. You know, to be honest with you, Sid would have made my list in that spot, but I'm trying to stay a little bit different. Goldberg was off my list, but I think he deserves to be on the list. Him and Brock Lesnar managed to have one of the best matches I've ever seen either one of them have. And Brock Lesnar is nowhere near my list, if you're wondering that. But he was able to get a great match out of Goldberg.
Yes.
I absolutely refuse to put Kevin Nash on this list. And if you don't understand why, Kevin Nash is a Tennessee graduate that played basketball at Tennessee.
We don't care about that.
Crappy wrestlers, and I don't have to code him in here. But Kevin Nash Goldberg with the cattle prod to beat him killed WCW, because now the one thing that Goldberg is two great moves and hot as fire when they done the streak. The streak is probably the best storyline of all these wrestlers, but I've also seen Goldberg. That match in the Saudi Arabia. Oh my! So bad, so bad.
Good. Let me throw this out to y'all real quick, and then we'll move on. Could Goldberg be one of the most overrated wrestlers that made a ton of money for their company?
Yes, and hey guys, if we're doing a 10. Stone Cold Steve Austin would be on my list, and I love him. But tell me what his character did in the WWE. He was a good wrestler in WCW, but what got him over was being one of the worst wrestlers in WWE, but talking like $1 million. So it is possible to make a bunch of money and be overrated.
Yeah.
Look, Howie, your point is very valid. You know what? The Ding Dongs are not on my list, and they're the worst tag team ever. But they didn't carry the NWA Tag Team Championship 7 times. You have to have a huge level of success to make the list. Khali, world champion. Jinder Mahal, world champion. Goldberg, world champion. Goldberg, WCW and WWE champion. Lex Luger, WCW and NWA champion, I believe. Sid Vicious, WWF champion, WCW champion. I mean, you got to make some money to be overrated, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, Randy, you're number 2.
Oh, number 2.
Get that heat off of Jeremy, and I'll tell you why. This man killed wrestling. He is the death of kayfabe. People walk around and they talk about people that killed wrestling, and his name never comes up. But he killed WCW with creative control.
Mm-hmm.
Man almost went to prison, and looking back now, he probably should have, but it wasn't over women; it was over steroids. He couldn't wrestle, or he didn't wrestle. He chose not to wrestle, except in the AWA. But who he is as a person is the reason he's overrated. I mean, I want to call him the GOAT. Nobody made more money. Not Ric Flair. Nobody in this sport till Stone Cold Steve Austin comes along. made more money than Hulk Hogan. But even WrestleMania 3 is a horrible wrestling match.
Yes, it is.
Andre falls around the ring. Hogan trips.
Yep.
It just wasn't good.
So,
but on
so
the
let me,
flip side,
let me.
on the flip side, everybody remembers WrestleMania 3. That's the one that
That's
everybody
true.
talks
Absolutely.
Well, look, Rock Hogan, was that a great match? No, but I will always remember Rock Hogan. What was that? WrestleMania 7?
The
I can't
crowd.
remember. 17.
Oh,
The crowd made the match, but
Howie, to your point about WrestleMania 3, we should do a watch along with it one night and see what we leave thinking after we watch Ricky the Dragon Steamboat takes on Randy Macho Man Savage. Then you're going to watch Hogan take on Andre, and you're going to be like,
yeah,
that's the point. The wrestling was not at the top in the WWE during its most financially successful period.
right,
about. But
right.
everybody remembers WrestleMania 3 because Hogan against Andre.
Yep.
Mhm.
And Hogan slammed Andre, which would have happened probably 1,000 times prior,
Yeah.
including Harley Race on a concrete floor. So
Yeah.
if you did know a little bit about wrestling, I think that's the reason I hate the WWE, because I did know about wrestling. And then when they tried to sell Hulk slammed Andre, I knew better. I've seen all the pictures. Andre didn't lose for 20 years, which is true, but he had lost in Knoxville to Ronnie Garvin by disqualification. So he did lose. He just wasn't pinned.
Yeah.
All right, Jeremy, you're number 2.
All right, my number 2, and Randall's already referenced him, but he's on my list, dadgummit, and that is Kevin Nash at number 2. And
Deserves to be on it, but
all right, so let me say this. Number 1, he played basketball at Tennessee. That in and of itself is enough to put him on this list for me. All right, number 2.
hold it, Jeremy. I need to interrupt you for a minute.
Yeah, I saw that. So number 2, this guy has never been talented in the ring. This guy had no in-ring ability other than being 7 foot tall with those skinny witty legs and that turkey looking neck. No, he just, and for me, and Randall said it killed the momentum of WCW and that streak by Goldberg by him winning that world title. He held the WWE, was it E or F at that point, title as Diesel.
They took the title off of him because
They took the title off of him because to me, he had no charisma. And to me, he didn't have it. And he was fortunate to come into WCW with Razor Ramon, with Scott Hall, and it was a perfect timing. But his association with Shawn Michaels and the Clique and with Triple H, that's what got him where he was in TNA. Had he not been paired with the Main Event Mafia and Kurt Angle and Booker T, and wasn't Samoa Joe in that at one point? Had he not been there, he would have drawn no money. He still, I am not a Kevin Nash fan. I never will be. There's nothing he can do about it to make me like him. Nothing he has done. He's rode the coattails of other people, and that's his success. Maybe being a shrewd businessman, maybe that's good. But negotiating those guaranteed contracts, he was one of the first, him and Scott Hall, for WCW. So, number 1, first and foremost, he went to Tennessee. That's all I need to know. Randall.
The one thing you get into with what we've said in the last couple of things, and I agree with his in-ring ability. Where I found Hogan's promo ability to be childish and cartoon, Scott Hall and Kevin Nash made me laugh, and
They did.
that was their ability, is to
Yeah.
be good bad guys. You know,
So let me ask.
he had 8 wrestling moves according to
Yeah.
himself.
Yeah.
According to him, he only had 6, but he had 8.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. This just came to my mind. So first appearance in WCW by the Invaders. Who made the appearance first?
Scott Hall.
All right.
Hall and was there for 2 weeks.
All right. If Kevin Nash comes in first, does it have the same impact?
Let's remember Kevin Nash had been a job guy in WCW, and then went
Mm-hmm.
and Michaels put him over as Diesel being his bodyguard.
He was the great Oz in WCW.
I think Kevin Nash being 6'10" and 325 made a lot of money.
Yes.
So, the NWO, I give credit to Scott Hall to being the unselfish worker, and Hulk Hogan for turning heel for why it got hot. I mean, we forget. I mean, I hate Hogan, but him.
You, how do you really feel?
I hate role by talent.
All right, Jeremy, get back in here. It's up to your number 1 now.
All right, my number 1. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
My number 1, even though you can't see me, is one Jim Hellwig, otherwise known as Randall. Randall, I swear we haven't talked before tonight. Is one Jim Hellwig.
Jeremy, you missed it. Before you even said who it was,
He put it up there. That's good. That's good. So, gosh, I'm going to have to go to a psychiatrist or something. I'm thinking this.
He was horrible. It was easy.
It's a layup to anybody that follows wrestling and that knows anything about wrestling. Jim Hellwig is probably the most limited professional wrestler there has ever been that held a world title. He's probably the most selfish and narcissistic. Even though Lex Luger had the gimmick, the narcissist, Jim Hellwig was probably the most narcissistic person to ever be in wrestling, and that's saying a lot. He was hard to work with. He was hard to deal with. He couldn't cut a promo. Matter of fact, you didn't even know what he was talking about half the time. All right. Did he have the look? Yeah. But he should have never the thing that got these guys a lot of times was their look, and the only reason that he ever sniffed a world title or an intercontinental title was Vince McMahon's infatuation with muscles and big men. That's why he had an opportunity, because other than that, he's got nothing. He had nothing.
Jeremy, would you say that the Ultimate Warrior had nothing?
I would say nothing. Nothing. Zero. Nothing.
All right, Randy.
That's all he had to me. Hey, my number 1 was also the Ultimate Warrior. Let me give you my about the Ultimate Warrior. In World Class Championship Wrestling, Fritz had put Jim Hellwig as the Dingo Warrior together with Kerry. I think Vince was intrigued with that the Ultimate Warrior looked like Kerry Von Erich, but didn't have the drug issue. I think if Kerry had been cleaner, healthier, that Ultimate Warrior run would have went to Kerry Von Erich. But they brought him in, and he was a fall down and drug user. So, Hogan and Warrior are my 1 and 2. And they had to take the title back off the Warrior and put it on Hogan because business was so down. So,
right.
I agree. Our lists are so simple. Matter of fact, I already told you that I changed mine just to put up some different people. But actually, Lex Luger was my number 5 too. Sid Vicious was my number 4. Great Khali was my number 3. I only have one wrestler that we didn't talk about that I very seriously consider. And it's because I think he's one of the most dangerous wrestlers in the business. And I think he's probably come closer to hurting the most people of anybody in the business. So let me throw a honorable mention up to Shane McMahon, who done so much stupid stuff that it made me, I think that would just be one guy that I went, he's so dumb with his body that even I almost take a Jim Cornette view of Shane McMahon. So, but that's our list list was 3 out of 5 people in the same spot, and the only person that you did make your list was Kevin Nash, was on my list originally, and I took him off just because he was my favorite Tennessee basketball player when I was 11 years old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So look, so the good point on Shane McMahon. The only reason Shane McMahon, and I know that ultimately that wasn't what he wanted to do, but the only reason Shane McMahon ever was able to get in the ring was because of who his father was.
Yeah.
You put him on the outside and have him come to WWF or E and try to get a spot, he'll never get a spot.
Well,
done some crazy stuff. Even later, what was it, just 5 years ago or so, he jumped off the top of the sail, or it's nuts at that age.
These guys, the running thing that we all talked about was they weren't trained wrestlers. I mean, Jim Hellwig and Sting were so bad in Memphis.
Yeah.
That Jerry Jarrett refused to put them in the ring,
The Blade Runners, yes.
And then they let them together, and Bill Watts got so tired of the Ultimate Warrior, you ran him off to Fritz. Now, credit to Sting. He stayed in the South, learned how to wrestle, and become one of the best wrestlers in the world. This list to me was real easy. This list, I think that we said 1 through 5 held a world championship.
Yeah, and I think another thing that is kind of a common denominator here. There's wrestlers that love wrestling. That's all they wanted to be. Then there's guys that say, I can make money wrestling. And if I look at my list, there's not a person on this list that I say they loved wrestling. It was their passion. It's something they wanted to do all their life. These guys saw the opportunity and you can't blame them. I'm not knocking them for that. But when you're not passionate about something, whatever you're doing, so I train. I'm a trainer. I do classes and stuff. Look, if I'm not passionate about whatever I'm trying to train on or teach or show, and God, we could get on how aggravated I get with our education system and our educators. If you're not passionate about it, you don't care about it, find something else to do. Right? So if you're not passionate, and I don't feel like any of these guys, I would say Goldberg, I would put Goldberg in that category as well. They saw it as an opportunity to make a career and make a living, and they never really became passionate about wrestling. I think Goldberg later on, you mentioned that match with Brock Lesnar, I think his perspective was different, and I think he had an appreciation, even though he didn't appreciate it back then probably, but he had a renewed appreciation for what he was fortunate enough to be a part of, So anyway, that's my rant on that. But I think that's a common thread on my list, and for most of yours, in my opinion.
Yeah, people who come to wrestling from something else.
Yeah,
Ex-football, ex-basketball
yeah,
player, bodybuilder,
yeah.
ex-giant with broken ass ankles.
Hey, he did bring us the Punjabi prison match, so you
Uh,
can't, you
yeah.
know.
How many different ways can we paint the hell in the cell?
True.
So, quick question for
Y'all,
both.
I'm telling you right now, that man was the worst of all of them when it comes. Hogan and the Warrior just couldn't get. I couldn't get past them because of my hate for them in the ring and what I think they did to wrestling. But and the Giant Gonzalez, we can't forget about him. God Almighty.
Would you uh, would you say he was overrated or just bad? I mean,
It's
Bad.
just bad.
just
Because I
bad.
don't think he was ever rated very high. Nobody had a high opinion of him.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
he's just bad. So, real quick, give me two honorable mentions, Jeremy.
Oh, man. Look, I got two. One of them y'all might agree with, one of them you may not. But one of mine is Greg Gagne. And I really feel like that if Vern hadn't owned that AWA, Greg Gagne wouldn't have gotten the time of day. I'm all over the place, but he could wrestle, I think, much better than these guys on this list. But he had no charisma. He definitely didn't have an appearance. Well, heck, for that matter, Vern didn't look like he looked very not imposing. So I've got Greg Gagne on my list, and again, this is not slamming those guys. He's just on my list, and he held a couple of tag team championships in the AWA. Uh, Probably should have never held a title, but the other one, and I said I have him strictly because I feel like that he missed it, they missed it, whatever. We can blame WCW, we can blame WWF, but I'm gonna put Paul White on there on my as my outside the top five, and the reason being is that they brought him in as the Giant, and which was Andre's son, and I think that was a bad move. But he was an athlete at 7 foot plus, at 380, 400 pounds. He was a legit athlete that could move. I think he didn't pay attention, and I know he had a condition, acromegaly, I believe it was, same condition Andre had. He had surgery to correct that, where Andre did not. So I know he had a lot of battles, but the rumors or what I've read, he didn't spend a lot of time taking care of himself, and making sure. I see that there could have been far more with Paul White, the Big Show, or the Giant, than what there actually was. I love him. He's been in some movies. I thought they were hilarious. I think he's fantastic, but I think that something we missed out on seeing something special. I believe with Paul White.
I feel like he was lazy.
Well, I didn't say it, but I think he really wasn't willing to put the work in. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, and we don't know. We're not there. But I think the rumor is that he was lazy. He didn't eat good. He didn't he didn't do the things that he could do to be at his best. Now, later, he trimmed down. We saw that. Y'all saw pictures of him. He really has focused on that. But at this age, and after injuries and all that, obviously he's not able to. I, wa- I was praying for the love of God one time come out as Captain Insano.
I'm still waiting.
Please. I'm still waiting. If it happens, I'm going to be a happy man. Please, for the love of God, Paul White, Big Show, I know I knocked you right here, but please come to the ring as Captain Insano.
They did do a promo on AEW where he was out in the lake as a Captain Insano.
I loved it. That's the best part of that movie, The Water Boy.
Randy, you're two.
Man, I'm gonna give you two real controversial ones, and two people I love, but I think they were major character flaw. I think they were major problems with their abilities. First, I'm gonna give you Kevin Von Erich. Uh,
Mm,
you know how I feel about the Von Erich family, but he was so
mhm,
dangerous in the ring. And you hear guys talking about when you went in the ring with Kevin Von Erich, you had to fight, literally fight. And I think that was the Fritz training.
mhm,
But also, I love Kevin Von Erich and who he turned into. But his personality when they were over, he was the least personality of the Von Erichs.
mhm.
Dave was a big personality. Kerry was a big personality. Kevin, that bald-footed hippy dippy thing, cut his hair in the bear. I don't think he equaled his brothers, but he's turned in. I have so much respect for Kevin Von Erich.
Yeah.
So let's talk there. And here's one's going to rattle people's cage because he may be one of the most over in a city wrestlers in history. Jerry the King Lawler.
Oh, I agree completely.
Stayed in Memphis, was a star in Memphis, but for some reason he caught fire in Memphis, and they made a living off of Memphis of bringing in superstar wrestlers to job to Jerry the King Lawler.
Yeah.
And, and what Lawler really had was a great mic ability and about four moves in a ring. He had a fist, he had a pile driver. When have you watched a Jerry the King Lawler match and it not been just 50 fists in a row? They
Hmm.
give me one more that God people will hate me for it. The Nature Boy Ric Flair. It
Uh,
was the same. I'm gonna flip over in the corner. I'm gonna come off the top
yeah.
rope. I'm gonna miss you. I'm gonna put a 34 on. You're gonna turn it over on me. Um, not that Ric Flair isn't a great worker. Not that Ric
No.
Flair
No.
isn't considered one of the greatest to ever be. Not that I don't love Ric Flair. It's just
Hmm.
I gets credit for some matches and some that he really wasn't the wrestler in it. He was maybe the creative. Um, the Steamboat matches,
Yes. I don't disagree with you.
you know, um, sometimes as great as when we talk about Ric Flair, as great as he is, he's not a top 25 in the ring performer, in my opinion.
Mm. Well, and y'all know how I feel about Ric Flair.
Love
I
Ric,
think I, th-
woo!
I think he's probably one of the best ever on the microphone. Those promos, those '80s promos, and now later on they got a little, you know, but even he had some great ones, but those '80s promos are iconic. I mean, if you find it on YouTube, a guy's put a compilation of those promos together. It's like 40 minutes long. I've just put it on before driving while I've been driving and just listening because it's categorized by topic and he was talking about women. They were all those were together. He was talking about his lizard shoes. They were all together, and it's just gold. It's just so good.
Put together 50 minutes compilation of him taking two steps and falling on his face.
Yeah. Yeah.
I,
Oh yeah.
I,
Yeah.
Shawn Michaels matches. I hate Shawn Michaels too at the time. No two matches were the same. Randy Savage, no two matches were the same. Ric Flair went around the country
It was
having
the
the
same.
Harley
He.
Race never had the same match.
Yeah.
That's the only reason I say Ric Flair is overrated in his ring ability. Greatest talker in the sport. And I love you, Rick. You trip
Yeah.
across. Don't get me wrong. I just
So
don't.
I will also say this. He had the benefit of not having the internet or cell phones.
Yes.
You could say the same thing over and over. You just know when you came to that town all over again, or if you came to TV again, you had to kind of vary a little bit. So that made it pretty easy when you know you could pull out the same promo you used the night before, or you used the time before, or whatever. But or the same move set.
I heard this on the Cornette show, and I stole it from somebody there. Go find me. There's millions of Flair matches on YouTube. Go find me 2 Flair matches that are completely different. You can't.
Yeah.
Go find me 2 Harley Race matches that are similar. You can't. That's the difference in them.
Woo!
All right, guys. Good show. We've got. I got 2 topics. I'm not sure which one I want to go with on the next one. I heard the H word a lot tonight, so let's go with the H word. Your top 5 most hated wrestlers of all time.
Ooh, I like this.
Well, the top 2 is going to be the same. So not Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan. No, I don't know, but
I'm going to come at it from a heel perspective, not as how I actually feel.
well,
Hated. I'm going to say hated
I
heel.
want it. I want it to have feel. You're most. I know you're the president of the John Moxley fan club, but but if it's somebody you actually hate, well, that's what I want. The top 5 people, not heels or nothing like that. Just the top 5 people, wrestlers that you hate all time.
I got 4 of them right now without even thinking. I'll just say that. Hey, yeah. So before we get off here, when you get done, there's something I want to bring up. Well, I know I'm kind of jumping out of line here, but I should have done this, I guess, the last time we got together. But a friend of mine, Casey Scott, who owns a lawn care business on Sand Mountain here, I think him and his wife and his kids live on at Pisgah. He's putting together a fundraiser for Rosalie Elementary / middle school here on Sand Mountain. And he's actually putting together a wrestling match, wrestling event, and it's called Rumble at Rosalie. That's going to be, and let me get that date. It's going to be the 8th, which I think that's Saturday night. It's going to be the 8th at Rosalie Elementary School. This Saturday, so March, yes. So
give me the information and card information, and I'll post it.
I'll send it to you. So to finish that, the kind of the feature performer is going to be Dylan Postal, and for you guys that followed the WWF or WWE anyway, he was known as Hornswoggle. He's going to be wrestling there. They've still got tickets available. The ticket ranges from $10 to $25. It's for a good cause. They're upgrading some of the restrooms there on the ball fields, I think, helping to support buying uniforms for the rec league teams, stuff like that. Casey's a fantastic guy. There, you won't find a better person, better family. And so if you get an opportunity to get to Rosalie, Alabama, to get a good night, I think it's Pro South Wrestling out of Piedmont, Alabama's putting the show on. So it should be a good time. I'm not going to be able to go, but he still had front row tickets, and that would have been my chance for the spotlight one time to jump the rail and get killed by Hornswoggle. So anyway, that's all I want to say.
It wouldn't be fair if we didn't mention Forever Pro Wrestling. Our boy Rocky Shaw is involved with Forever Pro Wrestling. I don't have the dates, but Rocky's put them on RiverCity-Media. They have Jay Lethal coming into Forever Pro Wrestling.
Yes.
So,
yes.
And I think somewhere in April.
Woo!
Hey, Jeremy, let's try to get that together. And do they have a GoFundMe we can post to or something? If you
I don't know. And again, I apologize for not putting that out earlier, but I will. I'll get what information is.
It's actually tomorrow night. Tomorrow night.
Is it tomorrow night? So I have my date wrong.
No.
Oh yeah.
Right. March 8th is tomorrow night.
Yeah, it's tomorrow night.
I just got it pulled up. Pisgah, Alabama, doors open at 5. Show is at 6.
Yep.
First row $25. Second, third row is $20. fourth and fifth rows 15, and general admission bleachers is 10.
Hey,
Gosh, I feel like a field trip. That's just 20 minutes up the road here for me.
second match of the night: Randall Cunningham versus George Nick Goulas. I hear rumors.
So it's I just now got it pulled up, and it is tomorrow night. They've got 2 posters on the Pro South Wrestling Facebook
Okay.
site.
Awesome. I was looking at a Jackson County Sentinel article to get that information from. So outstanding.
So
Yeah,
good.
get him on here.
Yeah. I heard. I'm sure that y'all probably heard it as well. Heard Hornswoggle / Dylan on the What Happened When show the other day. A couple weeks ago, he was on What Happened When with.
No, I haven't listened to that yet.
Oh, he was on there with Tony Schiavone and Conrad Thompson, and you need to go and listen to it. It's hilarious. Some of the stories that he tells tells about his days in WWE when he had to hang out underneath the ring until it was his turn to come out and everything else. It was fun to listen to.
One of the best storylines ever in the WWE is when Hornswoggle joins DX. Oh my God, hilarious!
He didn't talk about that one, but he talked about the storyline where Vince's son was going to be revealed, his illegitimate son, and it ended up being Hornswoggle. He talked about that. So yeah, you need to listen to it. I think it was like 3 weeks ago.
Perfect.
So
I remember. I need to listen. I've got a little behind on my What Happened When podcast listening, so I've got to get caught up.
But it was good. He was on there, like I said, I think it was about 3 weeks ago. So any closing remarks, Jeremy Johnson?
Well, it's good to be. I know I frustrate you guys on a weekly basis, but it's good to be back on here, talk a little wrestling, a lot going on, and I always have fun. And I hope I don't have too much fun, but I am going to seek counseling because apparently I think a lot like Randall Cunningham, and I've got to figure out how to not do that. But but other than that, man, good week. Glad to talk about my overrated, and I can rant a little bit, and I'll probably rant a little bit next week as well. So
just say no. Remember that, Jeremy. Randy Cunningham, what you got?
Hey, I want to plug a podcast. I want to plug the Dutchman Tale podcast. If you're not listening to Dutch, Dutch has a real take that, Dutch was such a part of that Memphis and Chattanooga and that scene. So Story Time with Dutch Mantell is my new one that I've been listening to. And if you're my age, he tells a lot of stories from the Mid-American wrestling and tells a lot of Puerto Rico stories. If you don't know, Dutch booked Puerto Rico for many, many years. So yeah. Check out Dutch. Story Time with Dutch.
awesome.
Good deal. Awesome. Guys, great to be back with you. Our next show, if everything goes well, is their top 5 hated wrestlers of all time.
Oh, I got one more thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
What am I going to do when Jesus.
He's gone.
All right. Join us next time. We find out if Jeremy Johnson was able to sleep tonight after drinking all that coffee. Good night and God bless.
Woo! Woo!
Non-sponsored.